Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 10th, 2025 Planning Board meeting. If we could please first stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could ask you just to remain standing for 1 minute. We just got news that Alice Roker, former supervisor, town board member, and town clerk, unfortunately passed away today. So if we could have a moment of silence in her honor. Thank you very much. Tom does want me to remind everyone this is not live. The earliest it'll get aired will be Wednesday or Thursday of this week. First, we have correspondence. Anything anyone wants to discuss in there?
Not here.
Not much. John? Counselor? Okay, next we have the meeting minutes of January 27th, 2025. Any comments, alterations, additions? Counselor? John? Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 27th, 2025?
Motion.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Rich, I have to abstain. I wasn't present.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, we're in the regular portion of the meeting. First on the agenda, we have a public hearing. It's for EnviroGreen Associates. Location is 1833 and 1875 East Main Street. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, everyone. Joseph Rena, the Principal of Site Design Consultants. Tonight, I'm representing EnviroGreen. With me is Mr. Cipriani, the owner of the EnviroGreen and the owner of this property, which is located at 1851 East Main Street in Mohegan. Several years ago, we had put a proposal forth for the plan that's up in front of you here, which is a single building. There's an existing building on the site currently. Over in this location, there's another existing smaller building here. This site plan was for a single building, which was going to be accessed straight on off of Route 6, using an existing curb cut that's there now. And we would be closing an additional curb cut that was over in this area. So subsequent to that, Mr. Cipriani had difficulty getting tenant for a full-size building like this, so he proposed and had some opportunity to go with a different scheme, which is not coming up. There it is. Which involved taking the existing building and the original approved building and splitting it into two and taking off about 2,000 square feet. Let me just bring up another view here. There you go. So essentially what we did was we took this portion of the other building out, with leaving two smaller buildings. This one is a little over 4,000 square feet. This one is a little over 6,000 square feet. Currently, one of the tenants that Mr. Cipriani has in this building, which is Dunkin' Donuts, was looking for a drive-through. So Dunkin' Donuts will be taking this space right here. As you can see, we're showing a drive-through lane going in and around the building. We've changed the traffic pattern flow on this now. The entrance is in the exact same location as approved. By the way, we have a verbal approval from the DOT on this. Once all the contractor's insurance and fees are in place, then they'll release the permit. So you come into the site, and it's one-way traffic if you go to the right, and it takes you around and in between the two buildings, or on the west side of the site, you've got two-way traffic both ways, two-way traffic around this building here, and again, the exit would be one way from in between the two buildings, as shown here. So there's ample room here for a lane, plus the stacking lane for the takeout window. The rest of the site has remained the same as that was originally approved. We've picked up a couple more parking spaces. Right now we have 123 parking spaces. I think we picked up two parking spaces over the original approval. These areas shaded in gray here are the locations of parking spaces, and that's all going to be porous asphalt. We have some banked parking up in this area up here, which would not be constructed at this time. The way Mr. Cipriani wants to construct this project is he wants to construct a smaller building first. So the entrance would be constructed, this main throughway here, driveway going across, around, and back, essentially up to the wall of this building. So the existing building that's there now will remain. I'll just show you that real quick. This is the existing building that's on there now. Again, that's the main building. You have an Italian restaurant in there, and Dunkin' Donuts and a salon. That will always remain. This is the other building that will be demolished once phase 2 of the new buildings is implemented. As you are aware, we required a permit from the New York State DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers, which are in place. Nothing has changed. The extent of our disturbance, the perimeter of our improvements has not changed from the original approved plan. So at this time, Ms. Cipriani is looking for an amended site plan approval for the plan that's before you here.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is anybody from the public interested in speaking on the application? I will note that there was a tremendous amount of work, site visits, multiple, for this project as it's gone through its phases. And I think the owner even said I think his granddaughter was born, and now she's in high school at this point. So this is going through a lot of iterations. I think we've seen pretty much what we need to see. Any comments from the board?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I do have a question. Joe, did you have signage, for traffic flow regulation shown on any of the drawings at this point?
Yes, we do.
Did I miss that one, perhaps?
No, we have stop signs shown. Directional arrows, that might be a good catch. I might have to check to see if we have directional arrows, one-way arrows, but otherwise everything else, the DOT made sure that we had signage in the all within the site, as well as
Well, I'm more concerned at the moment on the inside of the site, because you've got traffic coming in, and directly ahead of them, as they are on the site, you've got traffic coming out.
correct.
So I didn't see anything in the drawings that were submitted to me now about regulating and making sure that head-on type meeting is safe, marked out, so that you don't have problems over there.
Yep. This is a three-way stop at here. So you've got a stop sign, I'm sorry, two-way stop, but you've got a stop sign here, and you've got a stop sign here. So
Okay.
it's So it's essentially there will not be that cross conflict of traffic.
I just want to make sure it's
Yeah.
addressed.
Aaron, just for your information, Dunkin' Donuts made a whole site, has arrows for all of that gave it to us. Maybe I should have brought it in with it, but because of the way you're going to have the drive-through, and all those arrows that you see will be out there and on that.
So you've got to
I
stop.
didn't see it.
Yeah.
Besides the arrows on the ground, I didn't
Yeah.
see anything. I just want to make sure what the plans are going to
Yep.
show, everything you're putting there, and that it adequately directs the traffic on
Right.
that site.
So, as I said, even the DOT commented on that, on this whole intersection here within the parking lot, and they made sure we had stop signs
Okay.
in this location right here, and another stop sign in this location here.
Yep. This might,
why
it might be
I'm
on a
not-
drawing
yeah.
I don't have in front of me.
It
We're gonna
might
have to
be
dig into
on.
details as we go through
Do you have any signs that direct you to the right when you're exiting, for instance, the drive-through lane? In other words, facing you so you don't mistakenly, once you go through the stop sign, that you don't mistakenly go straight into the oncoming traffic lane? Because I think that,
That's what I'm
Say that again, John. Where are you saying?
well, if you look at the drive-through lane where you have
Yeah.
the car shown, if you go straight through, you end up in the oncoming traffic lane,
Right.
the entry. I'm
Right.
asking if there's signage there, not just the stop sign, to direct you to the right. Maybe, for instance, there should be a median, and maybe on
Right.
the left-hand side, there should be a do not enter sign, or
Right.
something to that effect.
I agree with you.
Yeah, so maybe we look at that.
Yeah, we'll
thank
put
you.
that on there. If it's not on there already, we'll put that on there.
Would it ever make sense, probably not, to shift that entrance a lane over to the right so that that inbound traffic isn't going, both those lanes are one-way coming out.
Right.
So if the inbound lane was not directly opposed, maybe
Yeah.
you'd have to move parking spots and stuff.
We, I don't know, I forget when the last time when we got our first approval, but we have been working to get this slip permit we're just getting now from the DOT. It took that long to get an approval from them to go back and make that change. I don't know if it's,
The whole thing over.
I think with signage, I think we can accomplish what
Yeah.
we need to do.
There's also potential conflict with people exiting the drive-through lane, and also someone exiting right next to you, the travel lane or the pass-through lane,
Yeah.
which I find to cause potentially some confusion.
Yeah, I don't expect that there's going to be a lot of heavy traffic going through
Well-
here all the time, and
It only takes that one time.
yeah. We will have Colliers take another look at it,
Okay.
right?
Devil's
Rob,
in
I like
details.
your idea, though, of offsetting the two pieces.
You don't want
I-
to, we really don't want to move that entrance.
Yeah.
I understand, but from our perspective, I think that's a very worthy suggestion, which would help eliminate possible conflicts.
It's a parking lot with lanes that are going to be
You gotta
driven at.
Yeah, you gotta
Step
go-
up
you
so
gotta
people can hear you.
I try to keep it a secret that I'm also a civil engineer. I've done well at hiding that as a contractor. But it is a parking lot, and we will have all the striping and whatever signs are needed, but to have to move that entrance would be just impossible at this point.
That entrance was located and approved at a time when there was no traffic conflict there. There was one building.
Understood.
So I'm just pointing out the consequences of your own application in terms of the safe operation of this site, that's all.
Okay, but we felt that this is a diagram that can be safely executed, and we shouldn't have any problems. Like I said, we may need more signage, which isn't a problem.
Yeah, maybe we would have to direct the drive-through people to make a left and loop back around again.
You said you're going to have Colliers look at it again?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, if they're gonna, you got a pointer by any chance?
I do not.
Oh, okay, if they're gonna stop at that crosswalk, right, when they come out, they go around the building, they get their Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and they stop at that crosswalk. There's also a stop sign for the traffic that's parallel with them in that direction. There's also a stop sign at each other position, so it's, well, I want to call it a four-way stop. That's
Yeah, it's right.
basically what it is.
Well, that
You're
traffic's
saying
one way.
there's a four-way stop there?
No, that traffic is one way that way. So.
Somebody's
No, I
coming,
understand, that's what I said. I don't want to call it a four-way stop, but every place where a traffic signal or a stop sign should be is going to be on every direction.
Well, let's have the professional traffic engineer take a look at it.
Okay.
Maybe we could even have them come if we need, as we go through the work sessions. Because again, we've got to work out all the details. Not yet. Anything else from the board? John?
I am curious about the note that says that access to the adjoining property will remain closed until there's an agreement between the two properties.
That's the note that was approved on the previous site plan.
Okay, that was, well, the last approval, I thought that was removed.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
well, we can go through it, but I remember the discussion with the former owner of the adjacent property.
Right.
And what made that person feel more comfortable is if there was no agreement. But what I'm getting at is that the approval of both of these properties is somewhat dependent on each other. And that's began and was designed from the very beginning when both were being developed or redeveloped. So in particular, the front connection services what should happen at the front of the adjoining property, because the ingress and egress from that, as it stands right now, is unsafe. It is the depth of the parking and the parking lot is a substandard, and so the design with that outlet was to allow people to maneuver a little bit better, and also to prevent or reduce the potential of folks trying to get out onto Route 6 from that parking lot, but to rather go around and come to the light on Lakeland. Some people will appreciate that, and if others will use it, it will help the traffic and the safety situation. So I think that if you look at most of the commercial properties that have adjoiners in which the parking lots are connected, most of them do not have access agreements. They are connected and seem to work pretty well without that agreement. So I think the way this was looked at in the last instance was to not require agreements between the two properties and let them operate more naturally.
I don't
That's
think,
fine.
I don't think he cares. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
the original owner's gone, so that's...
Right.
I don't think he cares.
Yeah, okay. So,
Why don't we explore that with the new owner?
Yeah, I mean, I just assume take that note off and then let it just let it happen.
Okay.
That's it.
Anything else, John?
no, that's all.
Counselor? All right, then, do I have a motion to close the public hearing and leave 10-day written comment?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to move into the work session portion of the meeting. First on, take care. You too. We have the Lamp subdivision. This is a discussion of a minor subdivision. Locations 357 Crow Hill Road. So many things have changed on that site since
That's not us at all. Yeah, that's the most recent. Okay. Good evening, Jody Cross from Zarin and Steinmetz. As you mentioned, we're here on behalf of Evan Lamp and his two-lot subdivision proposed at 357 Crow Hill Road. We were last here in November, and since that time, we've made more revisions to the plan. We made a submission at the beginning of January and also at the end of January. We're showing now stormwater. We're also showing we added a dead-end fire apparatus access turn. There was some concern about the width of the driveway, which is 16 feet in most places. There was a memo back in September from the Fire Bureau requesting that the road be widened, but we since, in our early January submission, we first showed the turnaround. They submitted another memo January 13th or 14th. And based on that memo, it sounds like they're now satisfied that we've provided compliance with the fire code. So we're here basically now, hopefully, to move this project along. We do require a frontage variance and a 280A variance from the zoning board, so we're hoping tonight to get a referral, preferably a positive referral, over to the zoning board so we could seek those variances and then come back to you.
Can you explain the turnaround?
No, but I
Or
bet Paul
someone
can.
that can explain it?
What happens is the main access drive coming in, which is 16 feet, will expand out to 20. It'll run 20 feet to what'll be the center line of the new driveway that goes up to the new lot. It will still be 20 feet, 60 feet past that new center line. And it extends, I believe, 70 feet up into the new lot. So you have plenty of area to maneuver a fire truck, and usually the code on what you're using is the ladder truck, which is, I think, is the biggest truck with the biggest turnaround radius. So that's what fits and works, and that gives us our dimensions, and that's how we set our turnaround.
So you are complying with one of the sketch examples in the code, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And my other question is, the code requires 20 feet, and then for the last 500 feet, 26 feet?
And the fire board has the right to override that, which they did in essence, their January 14th letter. They are happy with the 16 feet.
I don't see an override there. I just see they're content with revisions.
The plan that they looked at had the 16-foot driveway and the turnaround, and our reading of that memo is there.
Nope.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, basically says that we're content with the revisions.
Yeah. I mean, you have the memo in front of you. They did have the turnaround. I know that there was some question about when that turnaround was on the plans, because we did make a submission.
Which memo specifically are you referring to?
January 14th.
From whom?
From Jason Schwartz, Commissioner of the Bureau of Fire Prevention, and Edward Koslitz, Assistant Building and Fire Inspector.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure, because we've got another memo from the building department asserting some sort of...
So just to be clear, that original memo from September was also from Mr. Kolish. If I'm mispronouncing his name, I apologize.
And then there's another one.
And
more
then
one from-
the January memo is from him as well. So,
So that's a joint memo from both?
correct.
Okay, got it.
Well,
I think,
I see the memos. What I'm saying is, if you look at Appendix D, which is a section of code, it has a chart there that requires a 20-foot width for the first 150 feet. And after 500 feet, it requires 26 feet of width with a turnaround. And if this is part of a adopted New York State code requirement, I don't know that the fire board can vary that. And if they can, I think this board should have some documentation that they have that authority to do so.
You'd have to seek a state variance. You'd have to go to Albany.
That's what that would be my understanding, but I've heard a little bit different just now. So.
That's something we'll have to confirm that with the building department.
And so I guess I also just have a general question along those lines, is if you have the width for such a 20-foot wide access, why would you not do it?
We get into issues with some drop-off on the first several hundred feet of the road, and there are some wetlands located on the north. So
Well, wetlands you have the availability to get a permit to do
Yes.
work in wetlands, so.
yeah, so what it comes down to is, can you maneuver your fire trucks in and off the site, be able to turn around and be able to pull out? Is a 16-foot wide road acceptable to you? And the fire board's saying yes.
Yeah, I understand the proposition, but I'm just wondering that the code requires what it requires. And in order to vary the code, where does that authority come from that's bestowed on the fire board or anybody else?
I can't answer that.
That's the question.
I guess we need that question answered, right?
Yeah.
It's never easy.
No.
Never easy.
Well, we'll reach out to the building department if we need to get if we need to add that to our variance from the zoning board, we will. If we need to get a state variance, it could be conditioned on that as well.
I think a lot of it.
Yeah, and the reason it comes up is because typically on what would be a 5-home neighborhood, would most normally, if you were seeing it for the first time, would be a major subdivision. And the practice has been that anywhere above 4, you're getting into public road specifications. And you may require a public road oftentimes. If you don't, you're still looking at that type of specification. So that's why, it comes up like this, I think, and possibly why you find it in the fire code. I mean, I know it's more of a practical aspect to get the fire engines on a wide enough road, but for a 5-home subdivision, what we've seen here in Yorktown often is would be major subdivision, and you're seeing more of a public road with, and construction, not, what is basically a extra wide driveway for those 5 folks.
So I as a former building inspector, the local government doesn't have the authority to override the ICC code, which is amended by New York State, so they get their own picture on the book. You'd have to go to Albany to get that changed, or to get a variance. And I think that's a much longer process than the local variance. So I think I would first hit the building department and see how that path would pan out, and then we'll have to move on from there. But I think we need that answered first, unless compliance is obtained.
Understood.
All right? Okay? All right.
So before we can move on to the zoning board. is
Yeah,
what
I
you're saying.
can't see that moving on until we have that answer.
Okay, we'll address that for the next meeting, and we'll hopefully have an answer for you by then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your help.
I guess, are there any other questions that you have for us? So in case there's any, we could just have one issue left open.
Looks pretty
It's a good
straightforward.
question.
It's, but again, that's a major stumbling block right there.
Understood.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
No. All right, next we have a ZB referral number 4124, T-Town Campus renovation, location 1600 Spring Valley Road.
Mr. Chairman, note my continuing recusal from this matter.
Yep.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Morgan from N Architects, and I'm here to discuss the T-Town campus renovation project. We were last here at the January 13th meeting, and we specifically came to discuss the zoning board appeal that we had filed to seek relief from a local code requirement for sprinklering the new education building. Since that last meeting, we have received actually a formal memo from the Bureau of Fire Protection stating that they are in support of our appeal, of supporting our appeal, and additionally from the building department as well. We've also had a very productive site visit with the zoning board, and we're able to answer several of their questions. And after receiving a memo from the planning board, we also submitted a response to several questions that had arisen out of the last conversation that we had. So what we would like to do is just walk through some of those responses that we had submitted to you and answer any questions that you might have about the provisions that we provided in the building. And maybe just as a reminder, we are seeking relief from this local code because of we find it unnecessary in light of viable alternatives which meet the intended objective of the more stringent Article Article I, which is to sprinkler the building. And so I'll turn it over to Mark Gratz, and he can walk through some of the fire access questions and the location of the dry hydrant, and then I can go through more specifically some of the details of the building design.
Good evening. My name is Mark Gratz, DTS Provident Site Engineers. Just to pick up a little bit on what Amanda was saying, as we've gotten here tonight, it basically started with an October 15th memo from basically the Fire Prevention Bureau, who had raised 3 comments, wondering whether or not the new education center would be sprinklered. They were curious in a little more information on the access to the maintenance facility and a water source. And primarily that led to a series of meetings with the Fire Prevention Bureau and the fire department starting back in November. We included a field visit with the fire department back in December, in which they actually brought their ladder truck out to the site to try and navigate the driveway that goes up to the maintenance facility. Based on that, we've made several changes to the plans that we can walk you through right now. If you can go to the next slide, that would be good. So primarily in this slide, the Croft Science Center is on the left-hand side. I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit more to the left half. Right there, perfect. And primarily at the request of the fire department, having brought their ladder truck out to the site, T-Town has agreed to basically remove an existing low stone wall to provide a little more width on the driveway, and to take out about 2 feet of a rock outcrop as well on the lower half of the existing drive. When we get to the top of the hill by the Science Center, the existing Science Center today, they're also going to widen that driveway by relocating an existing stone wall and providing a 20-foot wide access drive all the way out to the maintenance facility. The maintenance facility parking lot was also widened to provide what would meet a code eligible fire access turnaround. So we ended up adding about 10 feet to what was a former tennis court up there to provide the 70-foot depth necessary in Appendix D. That pretty much satisfied their concerns about access to the maintenance facility. We then turned our attention also to the water source, which would be on, if you can go to the next slide, which they had requested the provision of a dry hydrant. Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. So And again, working with the fire department and Chief Libertor, we drove and we selected a location about a little less than half a mile down the road along Spring Valley Road as a good location for the placement of a dry hydrant. This would have the benefit of obviously serving the community as well as just T-Town. And it would work best for the fire department in terms of both the hydrology of the T-Town Lake, where the water depth in that area is about 7 feet deep. So it provides an adequate depth within a reasonable distance from the road, shortening the pumping distance that they would have to navigate to draw water out of the lake. And from a usage standpoint and a size standpoint, I believe that came up at an earlier meeting, which I apologize for not having that information at the time, but it was the size of the lake is almost 41 acres, holds almost 58 million gallons of water. So the drafting of water out of the lake is not going to have any impact on the lake itself. Even if you went with a minimal where they had to pump 500 gallons per minute over an hour, you'd only be talking 30,000 gallons, drop of the bucket, not even an inch. Even less than an inch, the lake would be lowered. So there's plenty of water there available, and that's one of the things that has attracted the fire department to request access to it. The location also selected in the fire department's eyes is one of the safest locations because Spring Valley Road, if you're familiar with it, is kind of a winding road, hilly at points. This area is down close to what T-Town calls the Birdman Boardwalk. So it's a fairly straight stretch of road with reasonable sight distance, so that if a pumper truck is sitting there drafting water out of the pond, out of the lake, again, the vehicle can be seen and still could be passed in the road. Then to address their third concern was access to the education center. And if we can go to the next screen. And this was a concern, I know, of the board as well in their recent January 22nd memo. So the new bus loop that was being designed, which is up on the screen now, services also as a fire access road up to the new building. The teardrop, I'll refer to it as. The teardrop would allow a fire access vehicle, including as large as the ladder truck, to basically enter from Blinn Road and traverse up the bus lane and could literally pull up basically in front of the education center. Operationally, there is a possibility that if, what I've learned from the meetings with the fire department is a lot of times they'll prefer on their ladder truck to back up and have the ladder in the rear of the building, even in the case of this building, which is only a one-story building, but if they wanted to fight the fires from above. In that case, they might actually navigate the teardrop, go around the teardrop, and then back in so that the ladder was even closer to the building. That's actually shown in a part plan in the lower right on the screen there. But either way, the vehicle could get in and could get out. The portion that goes up to the education center is only about 125 feet long, so it itself doesn't require a separate turnaround. Under the code, anything up to 150 feet is permissible to have the vehicle either back out or pull out forwards if they had backed in. In terms of stabilization, I know that was a question too from the board. In trying keeping with the character of the site, there's going to be an 8-foot wide, basically walkway. Actually, you can go to the next slide. Maybe zoom out on it a little bit. So the center part would be of a chip seal type asphalt, sufficient to be able to withstand the weight of a fire truck, but more pedestrian scale and look and feel for everyday use for people that were coming off of the buses or accessing the education center. But the shoulders on both sides would be stabilized with basically like a paver grid type system that grass could be grown on, but that would still be capable of supporting the weight of a fire truck, thereby meeting the 20-foot road requirement. And that extends basically as far down as to about halfway down the education center, as you see there, providing access right to the front of the building. I think that basically addressed pretty much all of the board's comments. At this point, I think I'm going to turn it back to Amanda to address the building, unless there are specific comments related to this, or you want to handle all
Thank you.
questions at the end. Okay.
We're good.
If you can go to the next slide, please. So we've included a couple of images that were submitted as part of the site plan application, just to orient you a little bit. So this is an aerial view. On the, I guess, right-hand side, you can see the main entry, and you can see the access road that we were just looking at with Mark, immediately adjacent. And if you go to the next slide, we have a view from that access drive to the main entrance of the building, looking back toward the existing buildings that will be renovated at T-Town. If you go to the next slide, we've prepared just a few plans to walk through some of the safety features of the building, the way that it's been designed to far exceed New York State requirements, and create as safe of an environment as possible, both for occupants of the building, also thinking about the safety of any firefighters that might be responding here, and also protection of property in the case of a fire. So several of these were mentioned last time, but just to kind of quickly go through, it's a construction type 2B, so it's non-combustible. It's a steel structure, and with the roof deck, which is a concrete on steel deck. The building area is 5,920 square feet, which is less than half of the maximum 2,000 square foot area that would trigger sprinklering per the New York State building code for an educational use building. The occupant load of the entire enclosed area is 185 persons, including the rooftop access, which is all, of course, exterior, for access from 2 exterior stairs and an exterior accessible ramp. That occupant load goes up only to 297 occupants, both of which are under the maximum of 300 persons per New York State code for triggering a sprinklered building. Several attempts have been made at creating a very safe interior of the building, creating fire separation, although it is not required. So there are no fire resistance ratings required between any of the spaces. But what we've created is actually 1-hour separations between every single space in the building. You can see the small red dash lines. Those are 1-hour rated partitions. And we also have a 2-hour rated partition between the 2 classrooms. That's in the thick dash line. And then for fire resistance, for rooms and enclosed spaces in this type of building and in education and storage use, we're only required to have Class C finishes, where we actually have all Class A. So everything is flame resistant and also has a very low smoke development index. Can you go to the next slide, please? We spoke a little bit last time about all of the egress doors and exits from the building. Here, we're just trying to show it as clearly as possible, so you can see the dark red arrows. Those are the 2 primary entrances to the building at the north and south ends, quite far apart. The unfilled red-lined arrow, those are all additional egress doors from each of the classrooms and the multi-purpose space, which seamlessly connects to the primary entrance and circulation space. And then the dark gray arrows, these are not egress doors, but they are 6-foot wide sliding glass doors that will open up the classrooms to the exterior. And then finally, you can see at the top of the screen, there's a gray lined arrow. That is an additional operable window, which was added to provide emergency escape and rescue from the storage and office area. which was the only occupiable room in the building that didn't have an immediate access from the exterior. For egress widths, just to show what this really means and provides to us, per New York State requirements, we are required to have 37 inches of space in our egress doors. With all of the exits that we've provided, we're actually providing 256 inches, so far surpassing what is required there. And then the last chart at the bottom is showing all of the maximum travel distances, max common path of travel, and dead-end corridors, of which we have none. And you can see that we're less than half of the maximum distance from any exit, and also less than half of the max common path of travel.
Thank you.
I think there's one more. And then just maybe to end on this, this is simply showing where the fire extinguishers are located. We have 2 primary fire extinguisher cabinets at each of the main entries that will be highly visible to anyone entering or exiting the building. We also have additional fire extinguishers in each of the classrooms. And then all of the other little red icons here are showing the pull station, all of the various fire alarm provisions, the pull stations, horns and strobes in each room, and smoke detectors.
Thank you. All right, so as we said last time, the building code of the state of New York is a minimum code. I think the applicant and the design professionals have gone above and beyond to improve the fire safety of the structure. I think they've worked with the fire department, the building department, to make sure they got where they need to be. At this point, I have no objections and right in order of the board.
None here. None.
Anything? Hey, John, anything?
Nothing further on this, no.
Counselor? All right, so we'll get a positive memo to the zoning board of appeals?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice job. Well done. Thank you. Okay, next we have a ZBA referral, number 35-24. I'm sorry, Pogo Reale, I believe. This is for a site plan and special use permit. Locations 2829 Compound Road.
How you doing, guys?
How are
Good
you?
evening. You have the drawings on? Good evening, Steve Marino to Miller Associates, representing the Poggio Reale family. As you can see, we are starting the process of site plan approval before the board and special use permit approval for a proposed daycare center on this property on Route 202. Some of the questions that have come up in the past, the wetland has been delineated on the site. I delineated the wetland as a water course running on the western part of the property as the property line essentially goes to the town park property in the back from underneath Route 202. That wetland has been flagged. We've been to the Conservation Board a couple of times. Can we have a positive recommendation now from the Conservation Board based on our last submittal and discussion with them? Gary Sorkin is here. He's the project engineer, and he'll talk through kind of the details of the site plan. It's an improved parking lot on the property, construction of a new building behind the existing building, connected by a breezeway to make it all one building. And stormwater plans are in the process right now. There is a stormwater plan. Gary can go through that. And you know, we've had some discussions about the traffic on the property, and there's a proposal as to what to do about that. So I think Gary will take you through the initial description of the project, and then we'll see what kind of questions we have.
Hello, I'm Gary Sorkin of Sorkin Engineering Services. As as Steve presented, the civil structural engineer, and just going to kind of walk through the site plans, just a general overview, and then certainly open for questions as we kind of dive into this a little bit further. Guess I don't think we need anything further on the screen, and then we'll kind of dive in a little bit further on the next one. So here's the general site plan. In our bulk table at the top right, there are several existing nonconformities along the eastern property line. The existing residence is about 6 feet from the eastern property line, and then we are proposing a breezeway, and then the main building, and all of that will be 8 feet plus from the property line. There are other existing nonconformities like the frontage along Crampons Road, some other general site aspects as well. Again, all existing nonconformities. The only real variance, which I don't think we're going to get into today, but again, correct me if I'm wrong if we should, is the special use in terms of the daycare that is being proposed in the adjacent building there. But again, I don't know if that's more for the zoning board, but maybe we'll get into that in the questions. A little more about what we're proposing. Obviously, we need a parking lot. So we have the 12 parking spaces, as you can see there, the one ADA spot, unloading and loading on either side of the ADA spot, with sidewalks that then lead into the breezeway and then into the daycare center. You can see that we have allowed for, because this is a drop-off daycare, this is not, park, bring your kid in. This is a very prompt process, so that's why we certainly do have factored in that there will be cars that will allow for, the dropping off experience. But obviously there will be some people that will be parking there as well. We are right on Crampons Road. There's an existing wide curb cut that's there, that there's enough room for 2 cars to pass through there. We are calling for a right turn only coming out of the, as you're, after you dropped off your kid, you stop at Crampons Road, and then a sharp right turn onto Crampons Road so that we're not messing with any of the rest of the traffic to the west. As Steve presented already, we have already addressed the wetlands delineation, so I don't think we need to get into too much of that aspect right now. I think that's it for now. We can go to the next sheet. This is just the general overview of where we're at. You can see the entrance. Already there is a pretty wide, pervious, actually I guess it's more even impervious that's currently there for that large parking area. We are right along Crampons Road. There's a small retaining wall that you can kind of see in photo 1. And then the last 2 photos are just, from the, you can go to the next sheet there. This is the architectural layouts. This is preliminary. The project architect is certainly working through the room layout and all that. I don't think we need to get into too much of that right now. Onto the next sheets. So this is, again, more of the site improvement that we're doing. I know at the previous planning board hearing, December 9th, I believe, it was requested for the pervious pavers, and instead of us, only doing it in parts of this parking, we're going to do it for the entirety of the parking, just to kind of make sure that we're not causing any impervious coverage issues there. So we presented those 2 details at the bottom. There's the sidewalk that will be in, obviously, a solid concrete. Due to the grade that goes from west to east, we do have a small retaining wall, fieldstone, essentially, along the western edge of the drop-off line. I think at most it'll be 2.5 feet. And then I believe Steve might kind of touch on what is kind of going on that area that's directly west of the parking area there. I think that's it that we need to kind of go over on this sheet. Very standard soil erosion and sediment control plan. Obviously, we are very cognizant about the wetlands, so we will have very strict filter fabric fence that will then pretty much follow, again, that same western edge of the parking and then curve back as we kind of make our way into the drainage features and then towards the playgrounds area in the back. On to the next sheet. Here's the overly conservative drainage calculations. We are calling for 3 600, or is it 800? 3 800-gallon seepage pits. Essentially what we're doing, in addition to having the pervious paver system that we're having for the parking, we have the underground lines for the parking area that will then feed to one of the seepage pits, and then we went a little overboard potentially in terms of collecting all of the water for the existing residents, essentially like neglecting any of the runoff that's currently present there. Fully impervious area for the breezeway, fully impervious area for the main school building, and then that feeds to those two seepage pits, with the one in the middle almost being like an overflow for either side, for either the parking side or for the building side. And again, we can certainly get into some of the drainage calcs, but we can continue on for now. This is the utility plan. We are calling for 3 large light poles located throughout the parking area, and then several additional lights off of the existing building and the new building. You can kind of see our foot candle analysis there. We did get some initial water line and sewer line information, which we have also presented on the plan. The water line comes out of the house and then comes across Crampons Road. And then the sewer line, conversely, goes south towards the south portion of the property. And I think that is it for now in the site plans. So I think I'm going to hand it back to Steve to kind of go through.
Okay, we have received Dan's comment letter. I know there's some items on there that we're still in the process of working through. The formal application for the wetland and MS4 permit. So we'll be completing that. Robin, if you wouldn't mind going to the mitigation plan. Yeah. So as I mentioned, there's a water course along the western edge of the property. It has been flagged. So anytime the town wants to send their consultant out to confirm that with me, that's absolutely fine. The area between the proposed construction is currently maintained as lawn area. There are some sporadic trees mixed in through there. The proposal right now, I think there's one red maple in poor health that needs to come down. Other than that, there aren't any trees in the proposed development area. We are proposing to create a barrier between, as Gary mentioned, there's a retaining wall along the edge of the parking lot, so that's going to create a separation between the parking area and the stream. As you go further to the south, there'll be a post and rail fence at the 50-foot line in order, again, to create a separation so that operations stay to the east of the site, eastern part of the site, and the water course, the buffer can now be restored and be a more effective buffer. That area is also a limited mow area. That's that light green area, and we have trees and shrubs appropriate to the location proposed for that area there. There's the one tree, application for the wetland and MS4. We're in the process of preparing the EAF, the full Part 1 EAF, so we'll get that into the town for into the planning board for the next meeting. And I think that's where we are at this point, pending questions from you folks.
First, go ahead, fire away.
What are your staff parking needs? And where are they reflected on this plan?
So she has 9 employees.
I have 11 employees, and myself included, that's
I'm
12.
sorry, I can't hear you.
There's a total of 12 of us that work at the center.
Okay.
I did submit, didn't I? I submitted a form that, yeah, that's the form right there, that gives you the drop-off times, how many children we have in care, how many staff members also.
Where's the parking requirements?
So I'll speak on the parking requirements a little bit. And again, here to learn, and, I did try to take a look at the Yorktown code. Let's see if I found it. It is 300-26 for off-street parking requirements for new and existing development. And again, correct me if I'm wrong and off base here, but there's parking guidelines for residential, which we're not, commercial retail sales, no, professional office, no, restaurant, no, auditorium, assembly halls, no, all other permitted uses, which I think is what we're, being this daycare center. And then the required number of spaces is to be determined in each case by the planning board and local public agency, which shall consider all factors entering into the parking needs for each use. So, with our 12 spots that we have provided, that not only does it give enough parking for the staff, but also for the additional drop-off spots, for the parents that need to park. And the main emphasis needs to be, of course, you have your car pull around, the kid is brought out, and then the car is brought out of there. Because, you can't have everybody parking at once. And Christine, I believe
So
you...
at no point in your plan, why don't you pick up on it? You started. Instead of me.
Maybe because I had kids. Okay.
There's no plan, there's no numbers, there's no calculations in your documents showing how you came up with that number of spaces, right?
Correct. I mean, I think
Is it anticipated that the staff will be on site to accept drop-offs as
Yes.
parents drop off? And how do you work out the ratios of who's going to be inside watching the children and who goes out and accepts the child from the parent?
Tell us existing school.
So it's not a new business, so that's already been done, where I'm located at 3565 Cron Pond Road right now, in the Parkside Corner Shopping Center. So we do have staff that is there to bring the children into the building, and staff that's already in the building waiting for those children. And we keep to the state ratios from that are set by OCFS.
But you're talking about the same 12 parking spaces for people
So
to
the 12
park if they bring a
parking
child in?
spaces are for the staff members. It's not for parents. The parents are supposed to do a drop-off circle, and those parking spaces are strictly for the staff, the employees.
Well, do you ever have visitors? Do you ever have parents that say, I want to come in? Do you ever have an open house and things of that sort?
We stopped doing open houses, but I was talking to them about possibly 14 spaces instead of the 12, in case we do have, because we do have parents that drop in like once a month to do a special read or something like that to the children. It's not a chronic thing. It doesn't happen once a week. It's more like a once a month thing.
I think the question that comes to my mind too, Christine, maybe, how many staff are on site generally at any one given time?
So it's separate. It's different by the middle of the day. So everybody works in shifts there. So we have 2 girls that come in at 6:30. Like it's split. So let's say, so from 9 to 5, all of those spots will be used. So in other words,
By
staff comes in at,
By staff?
yes, by staff.
By staff.
Not all
I
staff is there from
would strongly suggest
6:30.
you have a few spots designated for parents
Visitors.
who
Yes,
are
yes.
going to drop off. If they have to go in and pick up a sick child, something
Right.
like that.
Right.
Yeah, there certainly are some ways that we could get at least a couple more, that center drop-off area.
That's a whole different thing.
A little bit. Even towards the rear might be able to
That
kind
would
of widen
They
out
could
a little
park
bit
out in
that
the
way as
street
well.
for
They could
that,
go in
not on
potentially over the
Crom
secret
Pond, but on the
entrance.
side.
So yeah, we are amenable to going with 14, 15 spots.
Is the home remaining a residence, or is it part of the operations?
That's a good question. What's the right answer?
Well, I'm just sticking on
I
the
didn't hear the
parking
question.
idea.
What was this
Where would the residents of the home park? Because I don't,
Well, we didn't say they were staying. We didn't
That's
say
why I'm
we were
asking.
going,
You gotta,
Oh, you gotta talk into the
you gotta
mic,
be in the
sorry.
front of the mic.
so we haven't determined that based on, the parking issue, so.
okay.
Yeah. And obviously, if there's no one living there, there'd be no parking, there'd be more parking available.
Right.
But I believe we can still get at least 3 to 4 more spaces in there. That's center island, right? You just need a 5-foot walkway, and maybe that last piece there, extend it out. So we could probably fit 16 spots.
What is the width of that roadway that's taking these cars around the loop?
The front, right up to Crom Pond.
Let's find out.
So we will definitely confirm, but I believe it was 14 feet, which should allow for us to have the 2 cars side by
Has the
side.
fire department gone through that?
No,
No, sir.
that is certainly something that we can, further present.
And also, you're going to have traffic coming in from east and west off of Old Crom Pond. What do you do with the backup traffic?
Oh, we have a light there, right?
But yeah, you do. It's 100 yards away from this entrance.
We can only make a right turn to go out, right?
Yeah, but you can make a left to go in coming west. So if you've got traffic trying to get into a spot, there's no place for vehicles. Now you got a backlog on 202.
Well, she has a daycare about 1.5 miles up the road.
I live behind it.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I do. I live on Hunter Brook.
I don't know that have you had issues with people drop off? And that's a pretty crowded,
Yeah, but you have limited amount of space for vehicles here. And
but they open
kids
at different
don't,
times.
kids aren't like Pony Express. You don't open the door and say, out.
That's true.
It is scattered, though, like the cars are not coming in all at the same time, so you might have one family drop off at 6:30 a.m. and another family not come until 7 a.m. So it's not like you have traffic one after another. And even pickup times, I did submit the information at what time they get picked up, dropped off and picked up, and they are mostly scattered. I mean, you might have three parents show up at the same time, but you never have 25, even 10 cars showing up to drop off at the same time.
So it's staggered.
It is. It's staggered. I did submit that. Oh yeah, it's up there. It's up there. No, and then I also have part-time children that don't attend every day. It's just a number of families that I service throughout the year. Is 50 to 60 families tops.
We can certainly put together a written description of how that works and to clarify some of these questions. As to how queuing in that road that access drive is going to be, and kind of what the stagger of kids coming in and going out is.
Yeah,
We'll make that more
I'm
clear.
primarily curious with the width of that roadway.
The entrance, you mean?
Yes.
I think we got room to make it 16 feet, right? I mean, it looks like we have.
So there is an
we wanna take a
existing
look at that.
retaining wall.
Yeah.
Certainly could.
I don't know
So that first stone of that retaining wall, there certainly, in theory, we could make that a little bit wider if we needed to.
Well, it's based on what the fire department needs are.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, can you just enlighten us on our role here? Are we, this is a zoning board referral because they have the ultimate approval on this type of thing?
They have the special use permit approval,
Okay.
but they have asked that you do a
Site plan.
formal site plan approval.
Okay.
I think it would be wise to schedule a site visit, maybe with them on the site. I think in the meantime, I think
Last
there's
time we tried this, we
a few
had this.
code questions we've got to get ironed out. If you guys could meet with John, Rob, and the crew. I know Dan's back there too. Maybe get everybody together in one room and kind of work through the details that we're going to need to see. In the meantime, we'll get that site visit scheduled so both boards can go out and look at the site. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. You guys have done a very nice job cleaning up the property.
Yes.
It really does look a lot nicer.
Outstanding, yes.
All right, so we'll schedule that.
Good.
And if you guys can get a time to sit down with John and Rob and work through the details.
Appreciate your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to switch,
I am.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to switch the last two items on the agenda. I'm going to move 7 to 8 and 8 to 7, just because they're in reference to each other. We have a town board referral amending Chapter 300, battery energy storage systems. And from the description, what we got, it basically seems like it's no longer permitted use in town.
That would be accurate.
All right, so the large-scale solar will be basically eliminated. So this application in front of us would be null and void.
But is it large-scale solar or is it battery?
Battery, sorry.
I mean, we haven't eliminated anything yet.
It's
but
in the
you know,
works.
We're discussing it.
So I have a comment on the proposed law that that you're looking at. We already have approved, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we've already approved a couple of Tier 2s, battery storage systems. And I would urge the board to make sure that in any new legislation, whatever regulatory provisions apply to existing Tier 2s remain somewhere
Absolutely.
on the books and not just, gotten rid of. That way we can continue to monitor, control, regulate what we've got, even though I fully understand the intent of the board in saying nothing more is going to come in. So that's my main comment on it, that we don't lose any regulatory things that we need as you guys go forward with the new law.
I could discuss that with Adam, and I don't think that would be an issue. I think
I
that would
don't
be wise.
Yeah, I think it's smart
We've got
move.
a few.
But like I said, it's in a discussion phase right now.
Okay.
So we currently have a moratorium. And
Yes.
the town board, who ultimately legislates, is got a proposal in front of us to basically cease the use.
Right.
So I think Aaron's comment about the coder very relevant. Should be put in.
Yeah,
Anything
we
else?
should do a memo.
Yeah. Anything else in reference to the code that we want to talk about this? John?
I don't have anything. So your memo will be
I think we'll mimic
what Aaron's
said,
comment
yeah.
is. Anything on the spirit of it or anything else?
You mean on the decision to eliminate the Tier 2s?
Yeah, if you process anything, you risk an inconsistent outcome, basically.
No, I didn't. I think what you're raising, John, is as a planning question. Do we want to have none of this in the town? As a planning board, we could certainly weigh in on that question.
I mean, I would yield to the fire and codes people. Obviously, this has become quite a talking point in, Westchester County. I'm sure the board has been talking to them ongoing. Sergio, can you speak to that?
So primarily there is an issue, a concern with regard to the lithium-ion batteries that are used in these kind of build-outs and the safety of them. There have been some issues in many areas where fires have broke out, so that's one of the major concerns that prompted this. In our discussions, we have looked at the possibility that the technology changes and lithium-ion batteries are no longer going to be used at some point, which is I think where the industry is going, but we don't know.
Right.
But currently in front of us, that's one of the major concerns,
Okay.
the fire aspect of it.
All right. So maybe we can start working on the language of a memo.
Yeah, and I'll send it around to you guys for your approval.
Okay. Thank you. All right, and then next we have, what was number 7, now 8, RIC Development of Battery Storage, discussion of site plan and special
Not
use
an
permit.
issue anymore.
Locations 3666 Old Yorktown Road. guys have heard what we just said, so if approved as written, this would be done, unless something changed out there.
Yes. Well, we don't know that it would be done. We would just have to go for a use variance.
Well, if it's no longer permitted, what path would that take?
Well, if they apply to the zoning board for a use variance, they have to make the case that they have valid reasons to be granted a use variance.
Use variance is the hardest variance to get.
It's a difficult.
That's correct. Mr. Chairman, if I may, just regarding that last point, there's public utilities in the state of New York. They actually have a different standard for use variances that they have to that apply to them because they're essential to our way of life, right? We see that very often in the context of like wireless telecommunications and things like that. There was recently a case in November from the 3rd Department called Freepoint Solar, standing for the proposition that non-traditional energy facilities also get the benefit of this lessened, more relaxed standard. Just something for you to think about as you craft recommendations to the town board as to whether or not this thing should be this kind of use should be forbidden throughout the town. We may wind up with a situation where you're having some unforeseen consequences. Perhaps a separate conversation.
So, what are we thinking here?
Well, I have a question. I was looking through the safety plans that were submitted, part of our package for tonight, and I noticed that the initial staging area for fire equipment is 100 feet away from the units. Am I wrong?
Mr. Would it be okay? We kind of just dove right in here. I had a quick introduction and all that. Just
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Frame where we stand. Would that be okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So nice to see you all. I'm Doug Warden. I'm a partner in the Tarrytown law firm of Snyder & Snyder. I'm here tonight on behalf of RIC Energy in connection with their special permit and site plan approvals to develop a public utility battery energy storage facility at 3666 Old Yorktown Road, Shrub Oak. On September 25th, 2024, we filed a pre-preliminary application. We met with the planning board on October 7th. The board conducted a site visit on November 16th and issued comments on November 18th. We also met with the Conservation Board, and on February 6th, they issued a no adverse environmental impacts report. We have now filed the full preliminary and final site plan, special permit, wetlands, tree removal, and stormwater management applications. We are aware of the town's pending moratorium on BESS facilities, and we've provided the required moratorium acknowledgement, indicating our understanding that this application runs the risk of the applicable regulations being changed and that RIC Energy assumes the consequences of those risks. Following is a quick summary of what we've submitted to date, just so we have a clear picture of what's on the table. Application forms, battery energy storage system special permit addendum, a project description, a Tesla Megapack 2 XL data sheet. So those are the batteries that are being proposed. They're manufactured by Tesla, and that Megapack 2 XL, that's their model. A full environmental assessment form, including a supplement, an emergency response plan, hazard mitigation analysis, code compliance narrative, wetlands delineation, habitat report, almost done, geotechnical report, noise study, decommissioning plan, and site plans. And so that having been said, at this point, if it pleases the board, I'd like to hand the floor over to Mr. Andy Welch of RIC Energy, who will give you sort of a more detailed overview of the site plan elements of the project and who may be able to address the comments that you had previously raised, sir.
Thank you. Just said, I'm Andy Welch. I've appeared before you before. Nice to see you again. Thank you for your time. A lot of this information I have provided before. Some of it I'll go through quickly. Please slow me down if it is. Rick Energy is an international energy company doing renewable energy specialty, involved in various different technologies throughout the world. But our North American presence is substantial. We have operated or have, I guess we've been in place in the U.S. for about a dozen years now, and we have done across the country different projects, development. Our heaviest activity has been in New York, where we specialize in these distributed generation 5 megawatt and below projects, largely solar. We're pressing more into the battery energy storage here. To date, all of our projects that we've done, just for knowledge, have been separate. We do not do solar with battery. We do separate solar and battery projects. Project location, the board has been out there. It's by the, as several people pointed out to me, the Goose Pond. It's a Provisi residence. It's surrounded by wooded, the Taconic, Old Yorktown Road, and it has dual zoning. The existing conditions we show it where we've got a floodplain along the pond that we're avoiding impacting. We've delineated the wetlands on site. We're outside the buffer zone for them. We're using existing DOT access, and as you can see also the location of the home on site. So the project, so that basically taking you from Old Yorktown Road in, we are using existing driveway, though we will improve it. It's at one point had gravel as well as compacted dirt. We're going to be putting gravel on it to increase its strength, but keeping it pervious. We've added, after consultation with the different bodies in town, a turnaround here for emergency vehicles and the like. The area is surrounded by a 7-foot fence. This area here, you can denote that the thicker wall is a stacked stone wall. And then we also will have both signage located at the fence line itself and at the entrance driveway to indicate the location of the project and the information on it. We mentioned that this is a Tesla Megapack 2XL. That's the iron phosphate battery technology. It's it's the more robust, more reliable, less likely to have impacts. It's a Tesla design where they have the different units separated so that you don't have any impact from one unit to the next as they go along. We're going to plan on having 6 of these units on the site that look similar to that in the picture. These are remotely monitored round the clock, and we're also adding, in addition to any code requirements, a thermal imaging cameras to detect any anomalies in temperature changes. And then if you're looking at the size of these are a 4-hour release of a 5 megawatt project, so that's 20,000 kilowatt hours capable of delivering. Connects to Con Ed through a manhole located near the entrance off of Old Yorktown. Con Ed then takes responsibility to take the underneath the road and up on their pole lines. So there's no new poles required for it. We will, after putting in the battery unit, be landscaping around it on these 2 sides. It's 3 shade trees being put in, sugar maples, and then a list of evergreens. 30 of them in total. And as you can see, if you look over in this area, the size, these are not small when planted. They are already considerably, not fully mature, but at least 8 to 12 feet is the size of them. So they will be immediately creating some visual blockage of the units. We've got lighting located. They're switched that can be turned on as needed. It's for security. It's downward, so it's minimal visibility from outside the site. They're directional. There's a right and a left to make sure it kind of is denoted in this image. The like. I'll remind you again, there are benefits to having this in town. Not only that it provides vital support for the local distribution network, can create tax and potentially other revenues that we could talk about with the town. off of this. It does not place burdens for school children or traffic because once it's constructed, it is unmanned except for occasional maintenance, perhaps monthly maintenance visits. It meets New York State's goals, or helps meet New York State's goals, them to alone. They're substantial, and we're running quite far behind in being able to reach those. And one of the keys we talk about the support for the local distribution network. You either, the only way to get power to an area is through transmission lines or having power plants in the area. So instead of having to build new transmission lines into this area, instead of having to build eventually new power plants, peaking stations, or whatever, we can provide these small 7,500 square foot facilities that can meet that needs. Safety, the New York State Interstate or Inter-Agency Working Group put forward a series of recommendations. We are fully committed to all of those, and in addition to thermal monitoring that we put forward. So even without that, yet in the code, that's something that we've fully committed to do. This kind of for planning department to determine fully, but our view is that we are fully compliant with the existing law, which is the only basis that we have for now, and going through and the safety. So at that point, I'll open for questions, but if I could just briefly take a moment to introduce, along with me, Christina Zalizzi from Langen Engineering, the engineering of record on this, and Sean Morris of the Energy Safety Response Group, who are the experts on safety. They're members of that interagency working group. They are the ones who prepared, and you've noticed in the application, submitted a draft emergency response plan. Finals aren't done until the construction is drawings have been completed. They did the hazard mitigation analysis, and the code compliance narrative are all by the experts. So if you have any questions in that area at all, or anything at all, I'd be happy to take them. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the power goes down in the area. The batteries kick in. How long before those batteries discharge at maximum discharge? How long do the batteries last?
The batteries are designed to have maximum discharge for 4 hours.
So you're telling me that all of this is for 4 hours?
These batteries are designed to charge daily and to discharge daily during the peak periods. So every day for 4 hours to help meet the peak load of the area.
I'm talking about when power goes down and the batteries, they're going to rely on the batteries.
No.
How long does that battery
That's not really how these. It depends on why the power is down. These batteries aren't going to be enough to sustain a large area. It's a small area. What it's doing is it's taking care of the peak, so you don't have to put gas turbines, jet engines out on the ground to meet the peak. These are daily peak load machines. They're running, probably 3 to 7 daily during the day, and charge every night.
During the summer when it's hotter than 80s and everybody's got the air conditioners on during the day, these units would supplement the power. And then
yeah, but that power has already been generated.
But it's just looking to offset the peak demands, so that you're not. That's the whole intent.
An example being largely that. So New York has several nuclear power plants. Nuclear power plants aren't very dispatchable. They don't like to turn down. So overnight, when the load goes down in New York, they're struggling to keep enough people online to maintain the proper voltage on those plants. These batteries would be essentially storing up the nuclear power that's been created overnight, and then during the peak of the day, discharging it when most needed.
Thank you.
Have we heard from the state, the Taconic?
I'm sorry?
Have we heard from the state on this application?
No.
I have, when we did the site visit, we had mentioned that the area housing the battery would have protection by bollards coming off the parkway. Bollards.
So Yeah, so it's got an existing stone wall
Stone
on
wall
that.
doesn't stop flying cars.
Okay, so we will address that. We have not fully on that. I don't know, Christina, do we have our traffic engineer hasn't fully given us back our response back, but we will specifically address that during the
All right,
planning
because
period.
my
as
point is that you don't always know where a car coming off the highway at 70 miles an hour is going to wind up, and it's pretty
Understood.
close.
Okay. Couple of questions. What's the size of the fenced enclosure in which the batteries packs are located?
The size of the
enclosure.
height of the fence or the enclosed area?
The area in which the batteries are is fenced in, right?
Right.
What's the size that's fenced in?
It's about 7,500 square feet.
What is the dimensions of that space?
How tall is the fence?
7-foot high fence.
What's the dimension of the fence, length and width? I don't see that easily on my...
I'd have to get that. I don't know that.
So you'll give us that, okay. And the question I was started off with before, in the fire safety plan, it's on page 16, I believe, it said that the staging area needs to be 100 feet away from the batteries if there's a fire at the beginning. What's the distance from the back fence to the traveled portion of the Taconic Parkway?
From it's about 100 feet.
It's about 100 feet?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Just have a bike path.
I can speak on that point a little bit if you'd like.
there's
Good. And again, introduce, I'm Sean Morrison, the Fire and Safety Life Consultant. Just my background, I'm not an energy person. I'm a fire chief, 25 years in the fire service, and kind of our role in this is often to be a translator a little bit between all the different parties that are at these. Our main priority, safety of your community, safety of the first responders, safety of my firefighters that I serve as a chief, that they go home. So that's just so you know kind of where I'm coming from. When we talk about the initial 100-foot distance, that draft emergency plan is really designed for your fire department to have firm ideas on what they want to do when they respond to an incident. So that 100 feet isn't saying, okay, this is a safe area and then an unsafe area. This is where we recommend an incident commander or first arriving company officer should stop, assess the situation, determine zones, determine things like that. So that's where that 100 feet kind of comes from. Part of making that ERP, which is something I wrote, is early engagement with your fire department. I'm not here, and I don't believe that they're here to say this is how your community should protect yourself and respond. We engage with the fire department. We talk about, okay, what are your response capabilities? How do you normally operate? And how can we make you feel knowledgeable and comfortable responding to anything in these situations? So that 100 feet is really designed for, hey, that's our recommendation to pull up, stop, assess what's going on, and then continue into whatever type of incident might be occurring.
Thank you. I would like to see on the drawings the distance between the property, the back of the battery area and anything else that's over there. I understand
There's a
that
path,
there's
yeah.
a trail there. I don't know the distances there. And the traveled portion of the Taconic, I'd like to see that on your map.
Okay. We can add that.
And I also do want to mention that, and we dealt with it at the Lowe's by Costco, the view shed from the parkway. This really has to disappear. All right? And I can see from what's here now, I've been on that path before and drove it just a week ago. You're going to see this. So I think you got to do a much better job at making it disappear.
Okay.
That would be, again,
I appreciate that.
fire
we can
people are
take a
going to
look
look
at
at the fire plan. The codes people are going to look at the code. The wetlands group is already looking at the site. I think our biggest charge after we get all this information from Rails is making it go away. And when I say making it go away, through vegetation. Right? Our biggest issue that we've had with more solar than the battery is the visual impact.
Yeah.
And clearly from that parkway, this is going to be visible. So, whoever and is it a landscape architect or a? Yeah, you got a landscape architect. They gotta go out there and really step it up. That would be my biggest criticism of this. You gotta make it go away. No one wants to see it, right? Firemen are gonna make sure it's safe. Codes guys are gonna look at all that. Again, we're gonna make sure that the wetlands are protected, but gotta disappear. All right, we've talked about it many times with these applications that come in. We want to see a wall of green. All right, 7-foot fence. and all of the wall, whatever, we need details on that, that could help, depending on how you do that. If it's going to be a structural wall that the engineer is going to design to protect from any vehicular accidents, we need to see all that.
Okay. Yeah, the proposed wall at this point is on the detail sheet. It's a stacked stone wall.
And how it's going to take an impact.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
A couple of questions. Is Rick Energy the operator of this installation?
Actually, there will likely be a contracted operator that is a 24-hour center, as well as having people loaded by. We are a developer and an IPP company, so we don't have, we contract out, and anything we own, we contract out operations.
So the operation and the ongoing maintenance and inspection would be done by a third party?
Under the direction of the owner, yes.
At some point, do you disclose who that is, or is it?
Happily, once we don't have anybody lined up yet. We've got a lengthy process and then the construction to go through. So.
And so you turn that operation over to somebody else. So how many installations of this size has Rick Energy put in similarly zoned areas?
As I thought I indicated earlier, but as far as battery energy storage, this is our most advanced of this size. We've done utility scale in Texas, and then we've got other larger ones in our parent company in Spain. But this will be our first of this size in the U.S.
All of those other installations are in what I'd call a more industrial or commercial type zoning?
The big utilities in Texas are in open space.
Yeah. Texas has some.
What's
the zone?
This is it's a split zone of this property. Actually, it's residential in the back and commercial in the front where the home is, and we're closed entirely our facility in commercial. But it's I'd have to go back and look. It's either just go through
C2 and R1-20 are the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's all C2, right?
Because it was a nursery.
C2 is a commercial hamlet center. R1-20 is one for the
Have you ever seen installations of these type of units in a zone like that?
Yes, I mean they're put fairly close. There's distance. They want 40 feet from buildings and the like, but. In fact, these kinds of, and I'm sure Sean can tell you in detail, are put on rooftops in cities.
The battery storage units.
Battery storage, yes.
I think there's one in the Barclays Center.
Anything else?
I have a question. I noted that you said that the technology is iron phosphate. And it's a Tesla manufacturer, correct? Can you explain a little bit about what that is, a broader explanation of the chemical makeup and what the technology actually brings in order that makes it more desirable, if it is, in fact, more desirable?
By more desirable, do you mean safer?
Excuse me?
Safer?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of the terminology, when we talk lithium-ion batteries, consider that kind of an overarching umbrella. The lithium iron phosphate that you're seeing in the Tesla Megapacks has become, in large part, the predominant chemistry you're seeing in lithium-ion utility scale installations like this across multiple vendors, including Tesla. And that's in large part due to its robust safety profile, in addition to some of the marketability parts, we'll call it. Lithium iron phosphate safety profile is great because it has a higher level of thermal inertia needed to trigger any thermal runaway. So in simplistic terms, it kind of takes a lot more to get it to a bad place than some of the other chemistries.
It takes a lot more heat to get it to a
to initiate thermal runaway. Yep, that's one of the things. That being said, there are other chemistries, NMC's previous capacities, that can be controlled in a safe installation. I'm not here to say this is perfect and everything else is going to cause you problems. It is considered the most robust safety profile, especially due to that high thermal inertia. It also has extended cycle life, so it has the ability to, without memory, charge and recharge through more cyclability. And it's considered a more stable chemistry than some of the previous, we call them kind of first generation installations we saw in like the 2013 to 2015 era.
So this is not brand new, but it's kind of the newer technology in terms of
I would call it the most predominant in Tier 1 manufacturers right now for this application. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is this what they put in on Gomer Street also?
I believe that's what they put in at, but that
When
went
they
through
revised
some,
it.
that went through a little bit of evolution, if you
Yeah.
recall. So yeah.
They revised it and they added, they
Yes.
made it this.
And beyond the safety, there's also the availability. Nickel, manganese, cobalt has even humanitarian issues about the mining of the minerals. So there's always a lot of factors that go into it. But we see Tesla as one of the Tier 1 manufacturers putting LFP out there.
Anything else at this time? All right, so get us those details, please.
Okay. So provide those as a full submittal or just the simple answers to the planning?
I'm sorry?
How would you like those
We'll-
answers?
We'll
delivered to
produce
you?
we'll produce a laundry list for you to get
Okay.
working on. So, including some of the things that were mentioned here, and maybe some that were not. That we see at staff level.
Excellent.
Just a quick housekeeping county planning board referral. Has that been done yet? And at what stage does that happen? Maybe after we respond to this round of comments?
I think we can do that with what is submitted here, which is pretty complete.
Yeah.
We can send it to the county and others.
Okay, great. And scheduling of public hearings.
So we have a public informational first that's unique to Yorktown.
Yeah.
I think once we get some of these details and we're on board with it, we can get that set.
Okay. Anything else?
No. Thank you for your
Thank you
time.
all very much.
Thank you. And if you could get that other information you were talking about, Counselor, about the special use, the use variance,
I'm glad to send you the Freeport Solar case. Is that what you're
if you could send it to John and Robert.
Here.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion, second.
All those in favor?
I will. Great. Good. Appreciate it.